The comments I'm about to make revolve around an incredible incident from the parshiot of Vayera. So unprecedentedly, I will be ahead of schedule. I finally got ahead, and here it is Saturday night, and I'm already giving teachings about the parsha of the week to come. So I won't be rushing around like a chicken Friday next week, and maybe I'll add some small points, but I will essentially have already presented ideas from the parsha of Vayera, which this year will be read on Saturday morning, October 27th. Everyone's invited, of course, as they are every week. The most incredible episode from Parshat Vayera, famous episode, is where God decides that the cities of Sodom and Amorah or Gomorrah, as it's called in English and Slovak, are unredeemable. The people are very wicked, and he's going to destroy those two cities. And God says, rhetorically, shall I hide this from Avram? And he tells Avram, and Avram, in the great tradition of Jewish activism, understands this information as his cue to try to save them. Even though it is the Almighty and omnipotent and omniscient God who is telling him this, but if God would not want him to know and do something, he would not be giving this prophecy per se for no reason. We know he says, what if there are 50 righteous people in the city? And God says, I will spare for the 50 righteous. And then Avraham bargains. He realizes there are not 50 people there. And eventually it becomes clear that there are not even 5 righteous people there. And what does Avram do? Vayeshev makomo, he returns. He gives up. So we see a beautiful, really sublime episode of him taking the side of the people of Sodom and Gomorrah. God, save the cities. Shall the judge of all the earth not do justice? This great line, it's a great verse. On the other hand, the way that it's done reflects the phenomenon which we just mentioned, that the idea is a transformation of people to make good people, and the love is focused on this goal. So there's love with the intent of changing people. And so too regarding Sodom and Gomorrah, he doesn't really say you have to save these people. He doesn't really say that the wicked are deserving of salvation. What he says is that, you can't destroy the wicked and the righteous together. By destroying the cities, the righteous will also be destroyed. Now, it must be said in Abraham's defense that his idea was that the cities should be saved, the wicked and the righteous together. But there is a subtlety in the argument which betrays this attitude of his, that the love for people is with the idea that we're going to transform them. And I did forget to say that the book of the Zohar mentions positively Avraham in this respect, that he prayed and lobbied, so to speak, for them. And they look at Noach critically for not having done this. But there's a fourth figure with whom it was carried out on a much more pure and sublime level, even more than Avram. And this would be the highest level of love, the level of Moshe. So if we take the dialogue about Sodom and Gomorrah, we see that Avram hopes to persuade God to save the cities on behalf of the righteous. Sees that his argument will not work, and backs off. With Moshe, the most dramatic incident of his defense of the Jewish people was the sin of the golden calf. And God says he's going to destroy the people. A similar scene repeats itself when God informs Moshe of his intentions and takes it one step further. He says, let me do it. And to this, Rashi brilliantly comments, and it's the same insight we said before. Let me do it. Moshe had no intention of standing in the way. So he correctly understood that this hanichama, let me do this, don't stop me, was quite to the contrary, a hint to evoke the deep love of Moshe on behalf of the people. Indeed, to try to change this decision of God's. And here we have a departure from the way Abraham did it. Of course, the tribe of Levi didn't participate in the making of the calf. But everyone else was guilty. There was no talk here about righteous and wicked. Nor does Moshe base his arguments on the presumed deservedness of a few righteous. He simply says, forgive them, and if you do forgive them, all will be well. But if not, erase my name from the Torah. He is saying, my name doesn't belong in the Torah. I don't have an existence connected to Torah without being together with my people. So Moshe's acceptance and love of the Jewish people was completely unconditional. It wasn't based on them becoming better. Now one may think that this level of love may be an obstacle to their transformation. Isn't Avraham's approach, I'm going to love you and present you what your potential will be? But underlying that, there's the nuance that if you don't reach that, then the love and its application was not completely meaningful. Moshe, who says, I love everyone the way they are, that love is unconditional. Maybe his ability to transform others will be limited by this, and yet we find ironically the opposite is the case. It brings us back to our aforementioned paradox, that the less people are involved in their own ego, the more anything they say inspires others. And of course here, the less Moshe is involved in his ego, the more likely he is to love people not only because of what they can become, but even in the way that they already are. From the perspective of the receiver, ironically, and this is a very powerful message in human relationships, people, when they sense that you accept them the way they are willing to change. When they suspect that you don't accept them the way they are, as we say in English, they dig in their heels. So it is indeed the unconditional love that creates the greatest potential for change in others, because people see it. They see that what you're interested in is their well-being, and therefore they accept it. But your interest in their well-being can only be communicated if you're more interested in them than you are in yourself. And this is illustrated by a wonderful story, with which I'll conclude. It was a great Hasidic rabbi, Meir Premishlan, and he had many charitable causes. He used to travel around raising money for them, giving impressive speeches, which worked very well. People gave large amounts of money. On one of these stints, a fellow fundraiser lamented that he did not have the same success and asked Reb Meir what is the key to his success. And he said, look, I don't like money. When I speak, it's like a mirror. I evoke this lack of affection for money in others. And the result is they don't like money. If they don't like money, what do? They give it to me because I'm going to give it to the poor. He said, when you speak, you do like money. And that liking of money, again, manifests itself in the listeners. They do also like money then, and therefore they don't give it to you. Either way, we see that it is the selflessness that creates the best possibility for communication and influence of others, and the point being that it is indeed influencing others is the true expression of love, because if it's the right thing that we're influencing them with, then this is what will bring true happiness to them, and this should be our interest as well.